Not only spring football going on, Richie, this week, but a bunch of recruiting going on. Florida State did pick up a commit. We're recording this at 2 p.m. or we're live right now at 2 p.m. So if they get anything else here on Sunday, that's not a hint, hint, wink, wink. I literally have no clue what their chances are of another commit. I don't necessarily think I would predict it at this point, but I'd love to be wrong on that. They did pick up a commit earlier in the weekend. But outside of that, a big legacy weekend visit, and not to go. Well, let's just talk about a couple of guys. QB Bo Bowen is on campus. Certainly have to think that Florida State has work to do there. They obviously need to fairly quickly get a quarterback into this class. Like you had, your quarterback decommit, and I think he's now with Washington. You've got to get a quarterback into this class that you can kind of start to build around. That's not an easy job at all for Florida State. A lot of quarterbacks already committed at this point. Most quarterbacks committed in the spring at a lot of programs just because they do. They want to, help recruit their class. You've had, you usually build quarterback relationships first, and they're one of the first people to commit into your class. And so Florida State kind of up against it, but with the uncertainty around like, hey, what is Norvell's job security? What does the future at Florida State look like? Not an easy thing, but something they certainly need to get done and going on pretty quickly. 4-star running back Jay Lamar. That's one that I think is probably going to be tough for Florida State. Georgia, involved there. Another 4-star running back in Carson Baker as well. A bunch of schools involved in that one. On campus, Brandon Bennett, big battle with Miami on that one of 4-star wide receivers. So a lot going on campus right now. A lot of young guys. What I've noticed though, and we'll talk about the commit in just a minute. We've talked about how important recruiting is. We've talked about how Florida State needs to get better at recruiting, how they need to finish, in or around that top 10, 12 area. I've kind of said that 15 is kind of where I would have them pegged right now. It doesn't seem to me like they're in it for. And I understand they're coming off a 2-win season. I don't know how much that matters because coming off a 13-win season, they still couldn't hold on to their guys. I don't know that I'm sold yet on this staff recruiting. Now, they haven't had a full year yet. I'm not, but they just, it is March and kids commit earlier and earlier and earlier than they ever have. And I just don't know if Florida State's that in it for enough elite guys right now. Like, they've got some nice pieces on campus right now that they're targeting, but finishing top 5 for a kid doesn't really matter, right? Like you need to land some, and maybe I'm judging a little unfairly. Maybe I'm judging a little harshly too early, but I mean, I know Bud got some heat for talking about this week, but it doesn't feel like they have enough elite guys that they're truly in the mix for right now. Now they closed really well on signing day last year. Maybe they pull something like that off again. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't have the warm and fuzzies right now when it comes to FSU recruiting. Not trying to be super negative, just trying to call it like it is. I know people will say, oh, recruiting doesn't matter until signing day anyway. Yeah, but you got to start to land kids because kids are committing earlier and earlier and earlier and in the spring and in the summer. And I'm sure they'll go on a run. I'm sure they'll get a bunch of guys committed in June, July. I just don't, the hope of turning this thing around by recruiting better, I don't know that I have the warm and fuzzies on it just yet. I want to give BetUS TV a little bit of love. Right now, they have odds up and available for the national championship in basketball, the NFL draft, early college football stuff that you can go check out. Check out all of their sports coverage on all social media platforms at BetUS TV. We certainly do appreciate them for their support. If you want to get real crazy and drop a bet on Florida State to win the national championship, you could certainly make a lot of money doing that. If you want to go anti-bet the Gators here in March and cheer against them, that's probably what I'll be doing during all of college basketball. But anyway, appreciate BetUS TV for their support.
Not at all. And you know what? It was exciting because there was a lot of elite talent on campus this weekend, for the recruiting weekend. But at the same time, almost every single one of them are not leaning towards Florida State right now, right? So maybe you've made up some ground. That'd be great if Norvell and Alzan, if they were able to make up some ground. But when you look at the names, the elite names, the high 4 stars that were on campus, they're looking at Oklahoma, Georgia. They're really, Florida State is in the mix for some of them, but at the same time, it's a uphill climb. And I know Mike Norvell loves to climb, but you do not want to be in that position when it comes to recruiting. And to your point, you should have a quarterback committed by now. That is the one position where they all commit early, right? Very rarely in recent years do you see a high profile quarterback commit on signing day or even during the
Oh,
season.
even season, yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be before June, I think. But
they all want to commit before their high school season starts, and here we are with nothing in hand, and that is concerning. And high school recruiting has been a concern for Norvell since he's been here, and of course, his first few years he got a little bit of grace, which makes sense because he didn't have connections to the Southeast, whatever it may be. But this year, I mean, coming off a 13-win season, then a 2-win season, and now still not having your quarterback in place. Again, I think he finally figured out that he cannot rely entirely on the portal. But what are we doing in terms of addressing it right now? Because I don't think we're addressing it.
yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see. Maybe, and I will say, on a lot of new staff, a lot of guys that are, they did just get, a lot of them did just get on campus, right? They've been on campus for 4 months or less, some of them, around 3 months. And so it does take some time to build some relationships, but I don't know. It doesn't, I don't know that they're in the mix for enough elite guys right now for me to feel great. Maybe that changes really quickly, and then I'll eat some crow. But I don't know. This is my warning for like the 26 class. I don't know. I'm still thinking around 15ish, but like I was hoping to kind of be lowball in there and be a little higher. I don't know if I feel great. I think 15 is kind of maybe your ceiling instead of your floor at this point. They did get a commit this week. 3-star Michael Ionata, interior offensive lineman, 6'5.5", 300 pounds, out of Calvary Christian, Clearwater, Florida. I just drove by Calvary Christian when I went out to the softball game. It's right across the street from where that softball tournament takes place down in Clearwater. The 68th ranked interior offensive lineman, composite number 773. As a junior, he started at left tackle for Calvary Christian that made Florida's 2A playoffs. He's a legacy, so legacy weekend. His dad did play offensive line at Florida State in the 1980s. He was an honorable All-American, sheesh, from the AP in 1988. He also has a brother that plays offensive line at Alabama. A kid that I had been told back in January that Florida State really put the full court press on, didn't seem to have a great relationship with the previous offensive, with Atkins, but it sounds like Hand really did put the pressure on, made him feel like a priority. I'll tell you, Florida State wasn't going up against, the absolute who's who of college football to land him. Kentucky was probably one of his better offers as well, but, offers that were not necessarily, like off the chart or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you did land him. I'm not trying to crap on it. Hopefully it's somebody that they can get in and develop. He's got a lot of good size, and certainly need to load up on size at offensive lineman. Seems to be a trend, a theme with what Herb Hand wants to do. Whereas at Florida State, like under Atkins, it was find athletic guys, and Herb really seems to like the size that he brings. So, like I said, probably translates interior here at the next level. Will not, I don't think it's kind of any kind of early start or anything like that. Like he'll have to get in and really, put in the work, be developed, and then maybe have a future playing offensive line at Florida State. I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily a bad take, but it's certainly one that you're going to have to work to develop for sure. So thoughts on the offensive line pickup?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad take, right? But at the same time, to your point, he will not, be productive on the offensive line for at least 3 years at minimum. And, again, he's an interior guy. And when high school, there are not very many elite offensive tackles out there. There just aren't. And, we know the schools they go to, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, but you got to go find some of them and bring them to Tallahassee because, it's easier to find an interior offensive lineman, it's much more difficult to find a legitimate college-built offensive tackle. And, Florida State just has not done that in years. And it's frustrating because, you bank on the portal and you think of a guy like Jeremiah Byers, who, quite frankly, didn't really work out. And we'll see what happens moving forward. But yeah, it's hard for me to get excited about a mid-tier interior offensive lineman. Um, Again, decent pickup. It's not a bad take by Florida State staff, but at the same time, I just cannot get excited about this one.
Yeah, it's not something to, necessarily write home about. It's a win. You need to fill out your class. Maybe, you continue to see improvement from him over this last year. He rises a little bit in the rankings, becomes a little more sought after, and then you develop him well too. Maybe we'll see how much if he
But then
grows
you lose
more.
them.
Yeah, don't rise too much in the rankings. So we'll see though. Recruiting, it's the lifeblood of a program, and we might be on life support as a football team right now. So
Yeah.
it's what it is.